I'm Gus Ferguson, architect, urban designer, and president of the Institute of Bahamian Architects. I'm here to inform and educate the Bahamian public as to the need for an institute architect, an IBA architect, and urban designer. My passion is regionalism, as the environment and the region should inform us as to how we should design, how we should protect the environment, and how we should live as inhabitants. I look forward to educating and promoting the Institute for the better of this country.
Hi, I'm an architect. My name is Anthony Jervis, and I have been practicing architecture in the Bahamas for 40 plus years. Architecture to me is very important. Architecture means so much. I think it's very curious to see today how people use, I think when people describe their professions, they describe themselves as their approach, particularly in industry, the architecture of this, the architecture of that. It kind of bemuses me that people do this and we say, well, I thought we were the true architects.
The greatest threat to our planet is the belief that someone else will save it. You matter, and you have a role to play. What you do make a difference. The time is now to take responsibility for yourself and your world. Hello world, I am Archeline O'Brien, the host for the Architect Plus Minus Show.
Southern Recreation Park in Grantstown, and I think this has just been, park has been opened at the end of last year. What do you think?
I love it.
Any
I
questions
think
about
it's, well, I knew, loving it from a female perspective.
Okay.
Now, our guest, Mr. Ferguson, is going to talk to you from an urban planner perspective,
Okay. Yes.
which means his lens is going to be transformed because he's going to get into the little details. What do you say? God is in the details?
Most certainly.
But of course, I like the layout. I like the fact that, you know, we can actually access the outside exercise.
Yes.
So it allows me to enjoy the view of the historical church and the library in the background, and there's quite a bit of information, there's quite a bit of knowledge you can gain from here. But like I said, I love it. It looks inviting. Is it? For me, it is inviting.
Well, what do you say? What do you think? What do you think?
Well, let me just say that I'm excited that there are some resources being spent on the refurbishment of the park, or just parks in general.
Yeah.
And we certainly from the profession look forward to that, because what it offers us as a community is that connectivity as individuals, as family, as community in general. So it connects all of the facets of a community. And from this instance, I'm excited that one park, at least we can say that one park is now receiving some resources that can bring it up to what it should be, or what it used to be.
You touch on an interesting point about it is good to see that something like this has happened. The time of day we are here now, the park is virtually empty. It's not being used. And the most important part of the park should be used. And also you talk about the imported issue of grass.
The imported issues of grass, right?
The lawn, the turf.
We like to see grass, and we like to see it lush and green, full grass that is green. But it's not necessarily. I mean, we have in our natural habitat, we have other species that can be used.
Okay.
In these instances. So it's in terms of the material, and this is a discussion on the material that is being used for a park area. And the material that we use is usually predicated on cost, on uses, cost, and aesthetics.
Availability?
Availability as well.
What-
Not only does it speak to us, but it actually takes back what we don't fully embrace or take good care of.
It takes back what we don't take care of. Give us
Periodically.
okay, for an example.
Right now we're in this whole, well, I consider it to be catastrophic in terms of climate, the whole issue of climate.
Okay.
And the Bahamas should be one of those countries that is sort of leading the charge as it relates to climate change, because we are one of those countries, one of those island territories that will be grossly affected.
We must give some kudos there. Some of the young people are being very out front with this. There was a young lady who was cited by the BBC last week about her initiative for plastics, and she has organized literally a use of people using alternatives and people picking up, and she has brought it to the forefront. So the Bahamas is maybe not out, maybe not the leader in this, but they're in the pack. Usually I must say sorry for it, the adults are not really taking this, but it seems to be nice to know that the young people, young kids, are taking the initiative and doing this.
So
Do you
how
think
could
this nurture, your question of the nurture,
yes. How could
How
the
is this?
urban planner? Because I'm looking at as we talk about design, we're talking about nature and the connectivity between the spaces that we have,
yes,
as well as the persons that are engaged in the spaces that we have. How does the urban planning discipline differ in somewhat from the architectural setup? Because when we're thinking architecture, and I'm trying to connect it all, I'm thinking architects are the person who draw the plans.
okay.
And then I'm thinking the urban planner as a separate discipline. How do you pull them all together? Are they separate in terms of discipline? Is it the urban planner responsibility, or not necessarily responsibility, but is it a part of their discipline to ensure that these different environmental elements is incorporated in the design or in the execution of these projects?
Definitely. I think to sort of simplify the definitions or the profession, and they are separate professions. Architects are more site-specific in their structure, in the development of a specific site. So the site and the site may vary in size. So we're not talking about a specific size, but the site may vary in size. Whereas as a planner, as an urban planner, urban designer, you're talking about on a macro scale, where all of the elements of a community, of a neighborhood, actually should be planned or should be projected as to what the outcome will be. And usually for urban planners, the fruition of their design would not be seen for a few years. So you're talking about 15, say a generation. It can be a change that happens in a generation. There are some instances where an installation from an urban planner actually changed a community at completion of the project. And I always come back to Central Park in New York, where when that design was proposed, you had pushback to say, oh, that is some extremely expensive real estate that we're actually giving up. But what it actually did was that it increased all of the retail around it substantially. So persons who actually wanted to invest in those real estate eventually invest in the real estate around it, and their investment actually increased. I don't have the numbers in terms of how much it increased, but it was a huge increase in terms of value.
In addition to that, it brings back to your question about nature. In a sense, nature versus the man. And the thing is that Olmsted was the designer of this park, of Central Park in New York, and he talked about how does nature play this role. Well, the practical purpose, he's right to say, he looked at the social economic reason. But one is that you need a forest area. You need an area. A park is really a penned-in area for animals. You need a place for animals. And this is what Central Park was. It was a place to do this. It was also a huge reservoir because you need water for the city.
Exactly.
So they had to create this artificial lake to contain. So you have water, and you need water for life. You need water for fires. You need water for plumbing, for hygiene. And so,
And plants for your oxygen.
and of course for oxygen and cooling, you need plants, and you need a green space. You need pastures for your animal husbands, which the word park comes from a German word, which means that a pendant where because you had horses were pulling fire trucks. Horses were a big factor those days. So literally, yes, your question is that this pushback of nature is that you need to have nature as a part of us. Oxygen, water, etc.
So, and this park then, I mean, let's say, could this be the Central Park? The Central Park of Nassau.
well, Nassau.
This is the Central.
We may not necessarily need a central park, but we can have a system of parks.
No, but
that
we
can
can say this.
perform.
No, but we can say this: is that Central Park is a unique to
Yes,
the New York
right.
grid system.
Yes.
It's a long linear system.
Right.
Right.
If you go to Paris or if you go to London, there are small parks that we have sort of emulated in the Bahamas. So they're
Systems.
little, what do you call them? Little satellites of
Yeah,
of
satellites.
parks
So we call
around.
them a system of parks.
a system of parks,
System of
which really need developing. Which
And
need
this is as you spoke of, this is the progress.
Yes.
This
Yes.
is where we're going.
this is
So
the
as a
continuity.
professional,
This is the continuity.
and through the lens of a professional urban designer, one of the few. How many do we have them in the Bahamas anyway? You're one of the few urban
Planners.
urban planners
planners,
in the
yes.
Bahamas designers.
My last count, I think we have less than 10 that I'm aware of. There could be more, but it's less than 10.
And what are the ranges? They transfer. What do they have? Different. You have urban planners. You have.
You have urban designers, urban planners. Right?
Transportation.
Well,
I know.
they are specific.
I know one.
Transportation are specific.
I know
Whereas-
one forestry.
Whereas urban planners, urban designers incorporate all of those aspects.
Right.
So,
So you're the designer of the cities, of everything, whatever else. The urban planners are those persons
At
who.
a macro. At a macro
At a
level.
macro, what
Macro
is-
level is literally the
The
whole.
whole, okay. So not just
The
designing
micro
a park.
level of just one small portion of it.
Okay.
One part.
a term that is used constantly for us is what we call comprehensive planning.
Okay. Okay. That's what you use in that environment. Comprehensive planning. We say the whole thing. So you're talking about
Comprehensive, very detailed. You really
Okay,
go
so
through the
it's God is in the details.
Yeah,
So
those are the
that's
nuts and
that's where
bolts,
you get it. The nuts and bolts of it. Okay, because we
But connectivity, both on a social, cultural, and individual level, has to play a role in all of the systems that we're talking about.
So it is and let me understand. It is the design of the exterior to kind of invite and attract and appeal to the person as a complete person.
A little more than that.
A little more, even
little-
beyond that.
No, a little more than that. We say that it's use,
Uh-huh.
needs, and wants. It meets the needs and wants. Mostly the needs are important. The needs are not negotiable. You need these things. You need oxygen. You need water. You need accessibility.
Precisely.
The need.
Wants is like, well, I would like a gym. Or I would like a tennis
basketball
court. I would like a
court.
basketball
Yes.
court. You know,
So the thing is then, so the parks and all these exterior green spaces, etc., is for the people. So
It should
park
be,
is for people,
For
or people
people.
is for park.
parks are-
Help me, let me say it again. I'm gonna ask you, and I'm gonna ask you, and then I want you to come in, and I want you to wrap up on this. All right. So give me your answer, Anthony. Parks are for people, or people are for parks?
Parks are for
Okay, help me. I guess, Mr. Urban Professional.
Parks are for people.
Or people are for parks. So parks are for people, and here we are at this most recent, updated, upgraded, improved design in our park
And I
system.
hope to be continued.
Yes.
It's not finished.
No, This is
not,
phase
not
one.
in the
They
physical
did say
sense.
phase.
Not in
This
the
is
physical
phase.
sense. Not in the physical sense. I mean, in the whole
Yes,
fabric and the whole continuity
system,
of it,
yes.
the whole system. of it.
Okay.
This is a good start.
This is a good start. So were you, and I'm just not going to get personal, I'm wondering how many urban planners or organizers were a part of the process. And don't answer, but if they were not a part of the process, then that means, could we sort of agitate to, because we know there are architects that are involved in it, obviously, but we're not certain whether that collective discussion is where you have the engineer involved, where you have the architect involved, and then where you have the planners, the planners and the organizers involved.
That is certainly one of the mandates of the Institute of Bahamian Architects to agitate for those things. We want the right people in the right place, given the right advice.
And you just, okay, this is, I'm going to say to you, because this is the invitation. This is an invitation to the table. This is an official invitation to the table, and we're wearing the, what do you call it? Let's go.
The logo.
The logo, sponsored by the
Institute of Bahamian Architects.
Institute of Bahamian Architects. And we
Yes,
all
we
look
are.
very
We all
nice.
are.
And of which our guest today is the president.
Certainly a pleasure to be here. I look forward to continued contribution to the show. Certainly to agitate for the membership, the profession, which includes both planners and architects.
Okay, so if I'm neither, I'm neither. So how can I
We
support?
certainly have friends and patrons of the Institute, and we look forward to you, as well as many of our fellow citizens, to actively participate in the Institute.
Okay, so there is a contact at the bottom. We advertise him. Well, he paid for this show, so we're gonna advertise for him. There's running across your screen is the website and the contact.
Can this be on a regular basis?
Well, it depends on the sponsor.
Okay, well that's true.
All things are possible.
That's a nice day.
It's
Very
been
nice
an
day.
exciting
Lovely,
time.
Lovely day, and that's what a park does for you. It provides these environment whereby you can be in solitude, or you can be in groups, and you can enjoy nature at its best.
In our next show, we'll be talking about demolition by neglect.
Demolition by neglect. You don't want to miss it. Tune in to the next show. We have some exciting guests. We're not going to tell you who those guests are, but if you tune in, you will definitely know. Demolition by neglect. We appreciate you. Thank you. You're incredible.
Bahamas.
See you
We'll
on
see you
the
then.
next Architecture
Section.
Plus Minus.